Lucis Trust, a non-profit, non-political, and non-sectarian organization on the roster of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and concerned with the establishment of world cooperation and goodwill, presents Inner Sight with your host, Robert Anderson. He, with Sarah and Dale McKechnie, President and Vice President of Lucis Trust, will discuss philosophical and spiritual topics essential to everyday life. Now here's your host, Robert Anderson.
Welcome. Inner sight is simply seeing that which is always present, but not yet fully recognized. You have, within you, the ability to see yourself and the world around you in a new way with new eyes. So, stay with us, and together we'll look at the world and ourselves with inner sight. Our topic for today, Reincarnation, Part 2. And before we explore this topic, I'd like to say a few words about Alice Bailey, the founder of Lucis Trust. Lucis Trust sponsors Inner Sight. Alice Bailey wrote 24 books of esoteric philosophy. And those 24 books are the main inspiration for the dialogue that you hear on this show. Now, the following thought also comes from the works of Alice Bailey. The new psychology must be built upon the premise that this one life is not an individual's sole opportunity to achieve integration and eventual perfection. When the great law of rebirth is accepted, it will be found to be a major releasing agent in any moment of crisis or any psychological problem. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind as I read this quote is probably the greatest comfort that reincarnation, or the thought of reincarnation, can give me, is the idea that I think one of my greatest fears, other than public speaking, is my fear of death. And I think
they're almost the same, aren't they?
Almost equal, but I guess that's why I fell into the role that I'm in right now. Being up here at the microphone is probably my soul's attempt to overcome that fear of public speaking. But I haven't really overcome the fear of death. But yet, I have a feeling that reincarnation it could probably release someone from the fear of death, and that
Yes.
could be great.
Yes.
Would you?
Yeah.
Is that so?
Well, yes. I'm not a psychologist, but I know some psychologists say that this fact that we die is the major conditioning factor behind what mobilizes us psychologically as human beings. And it gives us, I suppose, this intense desire to affirm the separated self, to affirm the ramparts of the individual isolated self, and to preserve its existence and affirm its well-being at the expense of anyone else who gets in our path. It's the cause of all aggression and bad behavior from the individual level to the group to the level of humanity. And if we could hold in mind and deeply believe in our hearts that there is no end to life, I'm sure it would modify our behavior. It would also release us from the illusion that we can have wrong relationships and not do anything about them. Get away with it, in a sense, treat people badly, ignore our responsibilities, not pay our debts, not fulfill our obligations, because the idea of reincarnation suggests that every T has to be crossed and every I has to be dotted at some point or another.
Yes, as I think we've said before, there is this balancing out of energies that has to occur, and before the perfecting process can go on, and that's very necessary, because until one is able to do this, one is just going to tread water and stay where you are, and you're not going to be able to move forward. So it's one's benefit that he or she take stock of the things that need to be changed and bring that about now in this lifetime. And so the psychologists have to grapple with this, but if they realize that there is another lifetime ahead of you, then maybe that can release a lot of the fear and a lot of the anxiety about dealing with problems right now.
Yes, if you know that you have more than just 10 years to get everything straight, I don't think it induces passivity so much as more patience. Patience with ourselves, patience with others, the realization that the way is very long and we should all help each other. There's an interesting statement in the books of Alice Bailey that there are 3 laws, she says: the law of rebirth, the law of love, and the law of group life, that hold the key to solving the world's problems. That's quite a blanket statement. But when you think about it, she's probably right. The law of rebirth, the law of love, and the law of group life. Our understanding of those holds the key to the solving of the world's problems.
We understand the law of rebirth and the law of love, but the law of group life is
What's that?
a little more obscure, I think, and we don't realize perhaps that we come into this world not just as an individual, but also as a group. We are part of a group, and I think one very graphic example of that can be seen is in the evidence of the baby boomers, what they call the baby boomers, those who were born right after World War II, from 1945 to around 1962. And so that there's a tremendous group of souls that have come into the world, incarnated into the world, all at the same time, relatively speaking. And you can see this group wave, in fact they call it the age wave, that has gone through their whole lifetimes, and that's affected the whole economy of this country and probably the many other culture, and the culture and the quality of life has changed as this whole group of individual souls have grown up, and now they're beginning to face the retirement years in their lives, and this is affecting the health care. It's affecting old age homes and retirement communities growing up, and whole industries have grown up with this whole group of souls during this particular phase in our existence and life.
There's another group that I've always been curious about in terms of reincarnation and death. Years ago, there was a television series on PBS based on Vera somebody's novel, Testament of Youth. She was the mother of Shirley Williams, a very prominent British politician who was one of the founders of the Liberal Party, I think, maybe 10 or 20 years ago. That was a novel and a program about the massive number of deaths of young men in World War I, when some huge percentage of Britain's population alone was eliminated by death in the war, so that they really lost a whole generation of young men. And of course this affected the young women who would have found them as husbands and so on, and life partners. And I have often wondered about that removal of such a massive number of people all in the same generation. What happens to them? We don't know. But the law of group life is fascinating to ponder.
Well, I think it's in the writings of Alice Bailey, it mentions that so many people that get caught up in the tragedy of a